Hello again, and welcome to October's episode of Inside TYPO3. This month we're celebrating the launch of version 13 LTS, and I'll be sharing with you some of my highlights from the launch party that took place last week, where Benny Mac delivered his version 13 keynote address to TYPO3 enthusiasts in Hamburg. As well as this, I'm also going to share with you some of my favourite new features to ship with version 13. And after all of that, we're heading down to Austria, where Kendall and I discuss our recent trip to TYPO3 Camp Vienna. But before we head over to Hamburg, I wanted to talk a little bit about TYPO3 version 13 system requirements. TYPO3 version 13 requires PHP version 8.2 or higher, and already supports PHP 8.4, which is currently in the release candidate phase. For our database, we're going to need MySQL 8, MariaDB 10.4, and Postgres 10, with support as well for SQLite 3.8 or higher. And when it comes to finding out how long this version of TYPO3 will be supported for, let's ask Benny.
So today we have a new LTS version, and LTS means we have a long-term support version. This version, use it for all the new projects, upgrade to this version for all your existing projects, because starting today we have more than 3 years of free maintenance and security and important bug fixes, and that's until December 31st, 2027. So this will be a long time. And then there will be ELTS, extended LTS, for another up to 4 years. And that means up until 2031. And of course, 2031, you can use this version, but hopefully you will upgrade to version 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever we're going to do.
One of the really interesting side stories that took place during the development of version 13 was the core team's collaboration with the Doctrine DBAL team. If you're not aware, TYPO3 uses Doctrine as its database extraction layer, and it's one of the reasons why TYPO3 supports so many different relational databases. Doctrine DBAL, just like TYPO3, is an open source project, and during his keynote, Benny took the time to acknowledge the hard work done by Stefan Burke. As a TYPO3 core team member, Stefan actually contributed back to the Doctrine project, and it's a really nice example of two open source projects working together. Benny talks about this and comments on the fact that we as a project no longer have to worry about contributing or building our own DBAL, and instead we can rely on Doctrines.
We use Doctrine DBAL. It's the database abstraction layer, and it's free, it's open source, and there's some people around the world who, like just a few people, who actually work on this library. And Stefan actually contributed to this library and added some features that we're utilizing now, and had quite some influence to Doctrine DBAL version 4, which we now use. It's really cool. So it also shows we don't just look at our project, but we actually care to the ones that actually support us, because we don't have to deal with this. All of us don't have to deal with the database abstraction layer, because Doctrine is actually taking care of that.
TYPO3's backend received a considerable overhaul in version 13, and with it we saw a completely rewritten reactive page tree module with an all-new backend search feature introduced as well. Probably one of the most demanded features was the support for light and dark mode, and this was introduced with version 13.4. During the build-up to 13.4 LTS, I was lucky enough to work on a set of feature videos to showcase some of these new features in version 13. And one of these features was a video discussing version 13's full support for right-to-left text direction in the backend, a feature that builds on the work carried out by Abdul Hamid Quaida, who is responsible for translating TYPO3's backend into Arabic.
First, we'll start with one thing. Actually, looks simple, but we made it possible to have the whole TYPO3 backend. We have 60 languages out of the box, including some right-to-left languages. But we had a problem because not the whole system was able to render right to left. Now we have one guy who understands Arabic, who translated the whole backend into Arabic, and said now everybody in Arab-speaking countries can actually use TYPO3. And I think that's really impressive, because I've been using TYPO3 for more than 20 years, and I never thought we could make this actually happen.
Benny then invited Simon Pretorius on stage to talk about Fluid version 4. Fluid is TYPO3's templating engine, and Simon is the lead maintainer for it. Now, Fluid last saw its major release back in 2016 with Fluid version 2. During his talk, Simon called this release the Don't Panic release. because whilst it contains new features, including new view helpers, version 4 does not contain any breaking changes, meaning your existing templates should work just fine in TYPO3 version 13. And as someone who has quite a few legacy TYPO3 installations that I still need to upgrade at some point, this comes as quite a relief to me. So thank you, Simon. Let's hear what Simon has to say about some of the new features in Fluid version 4.
First of all, the F comment tag now works as you would expect. It ignores every Fluid syntax error in between the comment tags, so that makes life much easier. It also supports Boolean arguments for tag-based view helpers. So this is also a big improvement, and it was quite a hassle before then. If you wanted to, for example, add a required attribute to a tag, this wasn't very easy before. Then there are a lot of new view helpers. Some of them are also available in Fluid 2. So we backported a lot of this stuff. So you can also use it in your TYPO3 12 or even 11 projects if you use the latest Fluid version. Yeah, and as I said, the main thing was code cleanup, and we plan to continue this with the next major version, version 5.
Benny then returns to talk about site sets, a new feature aimed at integrators.
One other thing that's kind of big, but only once you start using it, is the site sets feature. Site sets is, first of all, an API to define a certain list of settings. You have, like, imagine you have CSS settings, you have TypoScript settings, you have site settings, and you put them all together in one place. And you say, okay, for my website, I create a site set, and this site set actually needs the site set from the form framework and from Fluid Slide content and maybe from the Bootstrap package and from news. And this I bundle all together in my site set. But then you can customize all the configuration options from these extensions in one place. And once you created your site and the dependencies, it resolves automatically.
And let's listen to Benny one more time as he concludes his presentation in Hamburg for the TYPO3 version 13 launch party.
I hope you're now ready for version 13 and upgrade very, very soon. It's, like Sven said, the best version that we had ever so far. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye at home, and let's have pizza now. Thanks.
And don't forget, the full video of this year's launch party is available to watch on our YouTube channel. Next, we're heading over to Austria for TYPO3 Camp Vienna. Well, Kendall, it's Sunday afternoon. We've just wrapped up TYPO3 Camp 2024. Before we head home as well, I just wanted to quickly speak with you and find out how the camp was for you. I think this is your first time in Vienna as well for TYPO3 Camp. How did it go?
Yeah, the camp in Vienna was really special for me. I've been to a few now, so I'm not so new to going to a TYPO3 camp or the bar camp format. However, being that it was an international camp with English speaking, talks and presentations, that was really significant for me. And I also gave a talk while I was there with Panos and was able to hold a session. So that was also a really unique opportunity for me thus far in my time with TYPO3, because most of the camps are in German. So it was really nice to not only just connect with everyone in the community, from catching up and seeing them in between sessions, but also be able to present myself and have those discussions as well.
That's really good to hear. Before we talk about the actual camp itself and the 2 days that took place, I think we'd be doing the event a massive, massive disservice if we didn't talk about the warm-up day, which took place on the Friday, which I think was absolutely incredible. We essentially did a wine tasting tour just north of the city, up in the vineyards up there. And the event was organised by Volker and Peter Prahl, two of the event organisers. And aside from the obvious perks of going on a wine tasting tour, it was a really nice opportunity to talk to and speak with other attendees, and for me personally to catch up with some old friends from the Typo community as well. The weather was really kind to us as well, which I'm always thankful for. Straight afterwards, we went for a meal together as well in one of the local restaurants, which was awesome as well. So yeah, a massive shout out to the event organisers. The warm-up day was awesome. And I believe they're going to be doing the same thing again next year as well. So let's talk about day one. The opening keynote was given by Daniel, where he talked about open source and some of the threats and dangers we're facing in the open source community right now. For you, Kendall, were there any specific talks you really enjoyed or attended on day one that stood out for you?
Definitely. I really enjoyed the keynote from Daniel with the help of Matthias Bolesniak, which, anyone who was at the camp in Vienna knew that Daniel was overcoming a cold and didn't have much of a voice. So that was really entertaining to watch both of them kind of pinging off of each other to give that presentation. But really, really good takeaways for me about open source and kind of the direction that things are heading in that space. The other talks that stood out to me, I went and attended Abdul Hamid's talk about what is TYPO3, or explaining it to your mother, and that, from a communications perspective and also an outsider to the TYPO3 world, coming with a non-technical background, that one was really valuable for me because I'm always looking for ways to describe what TYPO3 is, what open source is, what a CMS, and furthermore, a content management system is. So having those analogies and simplified terms to explain to people in my own life personally, but also professionally, was really helpful. And then on day two, Manuel's keynote about accessibility was really important for me, again, coming from a non-technical background, to understand how important accessibility is, what it actually means to be accessible. And I think a lot of the big takeaways for me from that talk were just about how limiting our points of view can be when it comes to the topic of accessibility, and him showcasing the different ways that people access the internet and content and information really gave me some perspective when I'm drafting communications and how people will receive that information through an accessibility lens. So that was really nice as well. And then, of course, the talk from Anna and Myrna talking about the TYPO3 marketing team and the initiatives and what they're up to. Always helpful. I saw them present at the developer days. I know you did as well. So a really good job from them too. What talk stood out to you?
I attended 2 talks given by Simone Pretorius. Simone is a TYPO3 core developer and the lead maintainer for Fluid. He gave at least 4 talks this weekend, but I attended the one to do with integrating Vite into your TYPO3 projects, and the other one was an overview of Fluid 4, which ships with TYPO3 version 13. Abdul Hamid Quaida also gave a really interesting talk on the right to left backend UI, which coincidentally was on the same day as the video which we released for the feature as well, which was cool. And he gave a technical talk about this feature, how it's implemented, and it was a really cool opportunity for me to grill him on some features and find out how they did it. Also got to ask him about language packs in TYPO3 as well and how they're made. So that talk was really good. We also hosted our own session as well, where we invited people to come by and give us some feedback on the podcast itself. In typical German fashion, we got some pretty honest but very valuable feedback as well. So I'm grateful to everybody who stopped by for that. One thing I liked a lot about this weekend as well, and it ties very much into the bar camp theme, was that we had participants on the second day coming forward and making requests for talks. So people would come up to the stage and say, hey, is anybody here available to give a talk on front-end testing? Is anybody here available to give a talk on features in TYPO3 13? And I really liked that concept because there was clearly demand for those topics, and people came forward and kind of asked other attendees, is anyone willing to come forward and talk about these topics?
I would agree with that. And also the style of the bar camp is really unique, but also, again, the camp being held in English for people like, you and I who have been to other camps in German, and we're keeping up at least with what's being talked about, the collaboration of people coming together and the overhead topics. I think it was really special for us to be able to contribute, hold our own sessions, and have the whole offering in English. So I think that's what makes the Vienna camp really significant is that it is international and it's held in English. So there is that one time of year where we can fully participate and hold our own sessions and be a part of the group.
So that's it for this month's episode. We've had quite a busy few weeks, Kendall. Looking forward now to T3Con, which is rapidly approaching. And in next month's episode, we're going to do something similar to what we did with the developer days, where we'll be giving you all the information you need to survive and make the most out of your very first T3Con as well. Kendall, you looking forward to it?
I'm very much looking forward to T3Con. I saw that the team was doing the taste testing for the awards gala and the food looked really good on Instagram. So I'm excited about attending for the first time and yeah, getting everyone together to celebrate a really exciting and jam-packed year of all things TYPO3.
Sounds good. And I assume there'll be dancing on the last day as well, so we can look forward to that.
Well, if you're there, we know there will be.
Cool. I will see you soon. I'll see you in person, and I will see you at T3Con.
See you then. The venue at University of Virginia. Jeez.